welcome to Navigating the New TV, your guide to advanced TV in the 2020s. We've got a fantastic panel lined up to help you understand where TV is today, where it's going, and what that means for you as advertisers. We're going to explore all the latest shiny new toys and reveal why TV remains simply the best medium of any kind for advertisers, I hope. My name is John Watts. I'm Executive Director and co-founder of the Project X Institute, a brand new think tank and advisory group for the advertising and media industries. TV, as you all know, isn't going away. It's going everywhere with lots of exciting advances in targeting, addressability, attribution, and automation. The medium is really being supercharged. But of course, with every great change, comes a few little teething difficulties along the way, some of which may be somewhat more pressing in mind for some of you than for others. However, to help you navigate through this thicket of exciting new shiny stuff, we have a wonderful panel of three leading industry experts, gurus, and big cheeses. Vicky Fox, Chief Planning Officer of OMD, Matt Hill, Director of Research and Planning at Thinkbox, and Dom Dwight, Taylor's Marketing Director at Betty's and Taylor's. So, to get the ball rolling, Vicky, I thought we might start with you. What is advanced TV anyway? What are we talking about?
I'd say there's some nuance between advanced TV and maybe AV, and I'd probably put advanced TV in the camp that anything that you can place TV, use TV content, but for more sophisticated targeting techniques. And in that camp, I'd put things like AdSmart and maybe sophisticated data targeting across the BVOD or on-demand panels. I think that's where I'd put advanced TV, but that's not the same as total AV, which is maybe I would move that into some of the connected TV, YouTube, or even cinema output. So I think that's where I draw the line.
Do you think advanced TV is a helpful phrase?
No.
Okay, good. We're off to a great start. Let's move over to you, Matt. So obviously Thinkbox is the industry think tank for TV advertising. Do you like the term advanced TV? And if so, what is it?
Well, I'm feeling awful now because we've just published a booklet called Advanced TV. So I'm going to have to go back and retract all the 1,000 copies we printed off and send them around to everybody. No, it's really difficult, this whole terminology thing, finding the right way of framing the varying options that you've got these days. So we think of advanced TV as Vicky described. It's really about the newer ways in which you can use TV for more dynamic advertising opportunities. So it's one-to-one, generally one-to-one household or one-to-one device, targeting and everything that brings with it in terms of sort of regionality, data matching, customized audiences, etc. So as opposed to spot, generic or one-to-many spot advertising. Although I think it's unfair to not say that can't be advanced, because Vicky will tell you that can be very advanced as well. But we use advanced TV because we just want to avoid, CTV, connected TV terminology, which I think is confusing. OTT, over the top. What does that mean? What is that? And as soon as you get into the actual nuance of what those definitions mean, they get very confusing and they could mean very different things. So we've settled with advanced TV as the best of the worst options.
And when you think of advanced TV, are you essentially thinking about the application of techniques, many of which were developed in the world of online advertising, to the world of TV on connected devices?
Yeah, I think it's all the advantages that have been brought about by the internet. So it's dynamic delivery, one-to-one hyper targeting that brings about a whole host of new options within the world of TV.
Okay, Dom, you've got the enjoyable position of going after two other speakers. Do you agree or disagree violently with anything that either Vicky or Matt said?
I mean, ultimately, I think Vicky's right. But to Matt's point, it is a difficult thing to ascribe any kind of label to. It just reminds me of the days when we used to use the term new media, and you just think, well, that's automatically redundant the moment you've said it, isn't it? Although it's also kind of infinite. You could use advanced TV forever, because theoretically there'll always be some change to what TV is and what you can do with it. But I think as the sort of client-side Luddite, I'm quite happy to sort of defer to Matt and Vicky's sort of technical know-how on what it is and what it isn't. But as long as what doesn't get lost really is sometimes it feels like in the focus on what is possible technically, we lose sight of the primary reason why TV exists and why people watch it, which is the stuff that's on it and whether it's entertaining and engaging and so on. So I like advanced TV because it stays open enough that it's not just about what's technically possible. It can involve what is creatively possible in terms of content as well.
So diving back into the definition then, when your agency comes to you and says, good news, we've got some brilliant advanced TV ideas for you, what do they tend to present you with? I mean, I think it can range. So like most of the key stuff I think has already been covered in a very top line way immediately, because probably the biggest area where TV feels like it's becoming very advanced is in terms of data-based hyper-targeting. And I think one of the sort of perils of being client side is you don't have the sort of breadth of experience that you get in the agency world, which means that we are often basically having to look to our agencies, say, what is the latest technology and help us see the wood from the trees. So I would say probably the kind of key thing is targeting. But then the second thing would be, how do you reinforce the ads that are being served in a relatively traditional way with advertising that's then been supplemented on video on demand platforms? So, I mean, that feels like that's the area of advanced TV that's probably not sexy enough to get talked about a lot, but it feels like it is the biggest part of advanced TV, is the switch from kind of watching what you're given to watching what you want, when you want, where you want. Well, I confess, I think there's quite a high degree of alignment between the three of you, which I see as extremely positive.
Well, we could debate the advanced bit. We should also debate what's TV, because then that gets us into quite a new space, which is just because it's on the TV, is it TV? How far do we define professionally created content? Are broadcasters the only people who could make TV-like content? And that's why it's and I agree with it. There is no perfect definition, but there is no perfect definition for TV as there is for how advanced or whether it's one-to-one or not. So, I mean, in that instance, I guess that's what makes it really exciting and a challenging place to operate for all of us. Sorry, John.
It's a fantastic point. Matt, just briefly, to Vicky's point, when Thinkbox is thinking about TV, where's the line between TV and AV or online video?
So for us, it's really TV is not the TV set. So if you're watching Love Island on a device, that's still very much TV, and it's not all content that's on the TV set. So we take the line that it's high quality, professionally produced, regulated content. That is TV. It's YouTube is not TV. There is some TV on YouTube. But the most of what's on YouTube is not what we class as being TV. Subscription VOD, very much TV. Amazon Prime, Netflix, Disney Plus, that is TV. And if you have a look, we do the video analysis every year, and we sort of do a breakdown of how much time people spend watching different types of video. If you look at the TV set, by far the majority of viewing on the TV set, which is where people still prefer to watch, high quality content on the sofa together, with all the tech that they've got on their 4K televisions. The vast majority of that is either broadcaster TV, subscription VOD, or DVDs. About 5% is YouTube.
Right. So there are things being consumed on TV sets which are non-TV content by your definition, but TV is essentially anything professionally produced within that kind of environment, although it's going everywhere and spreading pretty far and wide, as you say.
Exactly.
Okay, I think we've got our definition.
I'd love to know what Vicky reckons, but we probably haven't got time. Go on.
I think that professionally created content would be seen by lots of audiences as being the same as value to them as TV. I think the key is the legislated and regulated part of that, and I think we can all probably agree that that's really important for the future of our industry, to have the legislation there to make sure that the quality is there. But I equally, I'd say that there are there are channels on YouTube that are so like TV in terms of their output and the quality. It's just maybe missing a slight element of regulation that would push them into that definition.
So for you, it's about issues like brand safety and compliance and watersheds and, you know, the kind of whole sort of infrastructure that supports the official quote unquote world of TV. That's the real distinction.
I think that I can understand why that distinction is there. But in terms of your experience, I don't think that people would see it as such.
Sure. Okay. I mean, I'm sure we can all agree these worlds are becoming increasingly commingled and the lines are blurring, but no doubt we will come back to that. So I guess what I want to do now is just step back very briefly and have a think about the context of a discussion about advanced TV, or put another way, what happened in the last 10 years and why are we talking about advanced TV now? And helpfully, our dear friends at Thinkbox have just published their annual roundup of what happened the previous year, which is full of fascinating facts and figures. And this year, I think you've taken the opportunity to take a bit of a long view and to look back over the last 10 years, which has got some really interesting data points. Matt, what are the big headlines for this discussion about advanced TV? What really happened to TV during the last few years?
The broad trends are the shift from watching live as scheduled broadcast TV to watching on-demand TV. The other biggest impact has been the entry of the subscription VOD players. TV is more competitive than it's ever been in its history. The competition for viewers is at an all-time high. So we've seen shift in viewing behaviour, especially amongst younger audiences, where they're increasingly watching video on demand, both broadcast video on demand and subscription video on demand. From an advertising point of view, this is making it more complex from a planning point of view in order to drive high levels of cost-effective reach for your audiences. And even more recently, last year, there was the pandemic, which had a big impact on viewing because we had more time, more need for TV, more people at home, people on furlough, daytime viewing was up, shared viewing was up. And we saw that the trends that we've seen over the last 10 years actually reversed. We saw people spending more time watching broadcast TV as well as subscription VOD and broadcast to VOD. It's just, it's the world is rapidly changing, and it means the most fundamental thing from an advertiser point of view is that they need to plan across the whole of TV, which is broadcast and video on demand, in order to drive those high levels of cost-effective reach.
So Dom, you heard Matt's perspective there. Does that kind of sum up from your point of view the context? I mean, is that where we are with advanced TV? Has Matt kind of captured it all?
Yeah, I think so, especially how confusing it's been to live through the last year has been confusing in a number of ways, hasn't it? But as a sort of as a brand trying to advertise, it's been particularly so just because of that flipping back to lots of old behaviours. But yeah, I think I recognise what Matt said, but one thing that sometimes feels like it ends up feeling as if the new stuff is overestimated in terms of the impact it's having right now, which is not to say it's not important, but it's rather that it will become important. But we shouldn't lose sight that the traditional core is still enormously powerful. And I think maybe that's the main message I can bring to this, is that's our experience at Taylor's, particularly with the Yorkshire Tea, is that we would have come a real cropper if we'd sort of just forgotten to look at core telly watching behaviour, which is kind of predominantly live TV, then gradually acknowledge that watching stuff on playback and video on demand was a space that we needed to keep an eye on. But I think if we'd sort of jumped on the bandwagon of TV is dead, we'd be looking pretty silly right now.
And I think the Thinkbox publication from last week does a really good job of telling that story. It clearly sets out lots of the new exciting things that are happening, but also sets out very clearly how important good old-fashioned traditional linear broadcast is for both audiences and advertisers. Vicky, I suspect you might possibly have a slightly contrarian view, but from an agency point of view, do you think Matt's given a good summary from your point of view of what advanced TV is and how it fits in the wider market?
No, that's absolutely right, and that's how we would plan in terms of total AV. It's about reach. It's about quality reach points. I guess the challenge that we've had for many brands over the last few years is, whilst you see that top level linear is reducing slightly, and as it tips into the BVOD platforms, that lightest viewers, so the lightest third, their contribution to that in terms of total impacts has halved over the last 4 years. So it's gone from, it was 8% of that, it's now 4%. I've just checked this morning the latest 2021, and it's down to 3, just over 3. So what it is you're seeing lots of linear viewing still, which is super effective. But what I think where it's starting to become, over time less effective for some audiences, is because the lightest part of that audience is viewing even less than it was before, and you're getting heavy viewers watching even more linear. And that in terms of, if you have a brand that needs to maximize weekly reach, for example, you need to be very cognizant of that audience. You need to sort of, as Dom said, you need to look elsewhere for that audience, and then you need to make a decision on who they are, trying to identify them, which is not easy, the measurement systems, and how much you want to pay for them. That's the other thing, because there's a very different price differential depending how you reach those people across different platforms. And that's the sort of sophisticated blend that you need to put into play across the linear and on-demand planning worlds.
So you're in a sense, and this takes us on to our next question that we were going to discuss, TV is broadly as effective as it was. It's still a profoundly powerful medium delivering against all kinds of different campaign objectives. But for certain audiences, as their viewing has become more distributed, it's becoming a more complicated medium to deliver against certain objectives. Is that essentially what you're saying?
I think that most brands, if you're catching up, if you keep up with those, follow your audience, then you can continue to make television as effective as it's ever been. Although I have seen studies to say that the mass market channels are over time becoming less effective, and we need, I guess, what it is more difficult to see, and you have to look brand by brand, is that are those brands keeping up with their audience? And that's what you need to do, and make the right decisions, like I say, on the weight of that, and the potentially additional data costs that it requires to reach specific audiences.
So Dom, what's your view? I mean, has Vicky sort of summarised how you would see it as well? TV works just great, but you're having to work a bit harder to make it deliver the same result for certain audiences? I
think, the point about it being specific to the brands is really well made, because, Yorkshire tea and the category of tea is quite universal in terms of who it could appeal to. Obviously, we're not silly enough to think we can try and speak to everyone. So we have got some targeting, but that targeting is still quite broad, and it skews a bit older. So for us, I think it's less of an issue, and it would almost be, we'd be getting distracted by novelty if we were paying too much attention to what the younger viewer was doing, although we have to stay abreast of it. And I think that's probably our main challenge, is how do you ensure that your core is sort of sensibly scaled and being run efficiently, while you leave yourself enough brain capacity to look at the emerging new behaviours and make sure that you're, I guess, tinkering at the edges, so that when that becomes a more mainstream behaviour in a few years' time, you're not caught unawares by it and finding that you're having to catch up. That's the balance that we try and strike.
So when your CFO comes in and says, Dom, I'm going to level with you, we're looking at cost savings, I'm afraid the marketing budget is up for discussion, is there any way you can cut our TV budget? How do you respond?
I'm reluctant to say, in case they are watching and use it on me at some point in the future. So I kind of grew up on social media, was my way into marketing. So I feel like quite a turncoat these days, but like TV budget is the last piece of the budget that I would cut, because that's really where it's the money that is doing the work of getting us the reach. On other channels, I'm kind of much more interested in the idea of a small amount of money and a lot of creativity. So because it's less about the scale of the impact you're going to have, and it's more about experimenting to see what might take hold, experimenting to find out what might be a scalable idea for the future. So stuff like content on social, I just think I'd rather achieve success by being really funny than putting loads of money behind it.
So Matt, you've sat and listened very patiently to two buy-side gurus and big cheeses giving you their view on the environment. Have you heard anything that surprised you, or is that just a realistic reflection of where TV is today and the role that other digital video plays, and that's all fine?
Right, well, for a start, I wouldn't disagree with Vicky. She's at the coalface planning with, working with clients to drive them, effectiveness for their brands. And Dom's seen it firsthand in terms of what works and what doesn't work. So I certainly wouldn't disagree with either of them. I think the way that TV works over the last 10 years has it fundamentally changed in a way that means there is potential for TV to be even more effective than it was 10 years ago, before we had all these sort of new entrants and these new competition. And absolutely, it's getting harder and more expensive to reach high volumes of young viewers through TV, even when we include broadcast to VOD. There is just simply more competition for their viewing time, and a lot of it is in ad-free content. However, do not, just because you're seeing that younger audiences are watching less commercial TV than they were 10 years ago, go, right, let's not bother with the TV. We're going to go down these other routes. TV can still provide a real core level of reach for many brands. And if you get your creative right, which is what Dom and the team are absolutely brilliant at, then it can really, really sing. I think the other things that we've got in play, multi-screening, people talk about that as being a negative impact of TV. I think it's one of the best things that ever happened to TV, because it means that advertisers can have an immediate impact. The rise of e-commerce over the last year, we're seeing loads and loads of new to TV e-commerce brands come in because they can see the immediate impact that TV has on their search and their web traffic. I think the broadcasters worked last year to shorten A/B deadlines so that they can offer more agility for advertisers, and that's going to stay going forward. And then we've got all these new advanced opportunities that we sort of talked about at the beginning. So I think that TV has changed, but I think there's so many positive aspects that mean TV has the potential to be even more effective than it was 10 years ago. So
you mentioned the opportunities there. Let's stick with that for a moment. If you had to make Vicky incredibly excited about the most exciting new opportunities that TV is presenting for advertisers and agencies, what three things would you zoom in on? You've mentioned some of them, but just make it real for us. What can we now do with TV that was hard to do 10 years ago?
Well, Vicky knows about them all because she's actually the one creating them, and we're just nicking her case studies and printing them in publications. But so our Smart from Sky, incredibly exciting in terms of the question around high levels of cost-effective reach. AdSmart can allow you to target that lighter portion of viewers who are less frequent viewers of linear TV. So rather than continue to spend high volumes of money just on the off chance that you're going to get them, why not spend just on targeting those particular viewers? You've got, with video on demand, all the opportunities of hyper targeting. So the brand match product that both ITV and Channel 4 are launching, the broadcasters are sitting on massive volumes of first party data. They've got all this, the permissions that they need from a GDPR point of view. Clients can look at their data. If they've got the right permissions, they can join it with the broadcaster's data, target churned customers, target light customers. So a lot of this stuff is quite new. It's in its infancy. I think that there's, as an advertiser getting into this kind of stuff, you've got to be prepared to sort of work at it and find out how to find the right way forward, experiment with it. But because it's so new, you could be one of the first brands and businesses that are actually finding the right way to make this stuff happen.
So, I mean, Vicky, as you hear Matt talking, you're obviously across a lot of these opportunities already, but presumably for you and your clients, the next 5 years have the potential to be incredibly exciting, because this stuff is new in some areas, but it's scaling pretty fast. You can do things like addressability or data matching to find new audiences, all these sorts of things at growing scale across the market. So by 2025, presumably TV has huge potential to be an even more exciting medium.
It is, and I think that's the point: is knowing when to go mass, knowing when to go niche, knowing your brand, knowing your audience, knowing what's going to drive effectiveness. And I guess the holy grail at the end of that would be a total measurement potential, because that's the bit that we sort of still come unstuck when we have to kind of map together panel data and probabilistic data and a few different sources to get what we think is a fairly robust view of a total AV or total TV campaign reach and frequency. And we just have to be very aware of the component parts that are going in to make up that decision, and the classic kind of tenets of reach and frequency have probably never been so more important, but we need to kind of understand how they all work together in each of those different buying routes.
I think it's a great point. Let's come back to that in 1 second. Dom, just quickly, you heard Matt rattle off a set of things that you should be extremely excited by, if you aren't already. Which one of them really grabs you? I mean, when you think about your objectives for your TV campaigns, what's the most exciting new stuff that you've seen over the last couple of years? What can you do today that really gets you excited?
I think the key thing that Matt said, there's the targeting, which you can get from the data. So getting access to that data in a responsible way and then being able to use it, that's, I think, the key, because especially for a brand like Yorkshire Tea, where we have grown really fast, but we are going to start needing to tap into those audiences that are harder to reach, that don't watch TV as much, and targeting so that we're not wasting is going to be so key. But it was actually the other thing, Matt, that you talked about, which was the shortening of the lead times and the agility that brings. I just think there is no point having this amazing data if the systems around it are cumbersome, because the data will be obsolete by the time you're acting on it. So John, I think my key thing is a combination of more agility with better data. Just means that we'll be able to be much more efficient, much less wasteful.
So Matt, you've heard Vicky mention measurement, everyone's favorite topic. You've heard Dom mention flexibility and agility. But there's clearly work for the TV industry to do, for the sales houses to do, in order to really help the buy side capitalize on these new opportunities. And the key thing for me that Vicky said is at scale. You mentioned it as well. What do you see as the priorities in the next couple of years to really unlock the full potential of the developments you've just talked about?
Yeah, so measurement is absolutely a priority for the broadcasters. We are well aware that advertisers are desperate to be able to get a full sight of the total reach and frequency of their campaigns across all forms of TV. They are working together on the C-Flight solution, which is a Sky creation, which they took from their owners, NBCU. They offered it out to all the broadcasters, and they are hard at work right at this moment. There's a meeting that I'm missing, which is about C-Flight and the development and the progression of that. And it's coming as soon as we are able to do. It's obviously, this kind of stuff is really technically difficult. It's legally difficult, because we're talking about taking their delivery of their VOD impressions from their own ad servers and pooling it together in a data compliant way with a third party, which none of them have ever done before. So we're having to create the means and the scope for doing that, but they're making really, really good progress.
And just to ask you on that, so I think understandably, lots of people in the industry might be a little bit confused by what's going on with measurement. You've just mentioned C-Flight, which is a kind of NBCU originated offer, which Sky is excitingly bringing to the UK. Barb is also retendering and has Dovetail and various other things on the go. I think Routimeter being installed. The WFA in the UK via ISBA are rolling out their thing, which I think Vicky OMD is involved in, as well as Facebook and Google. Haven't we gone from having not quite good enough measurement to suddenly having loads of measurement, which all seems to overlap slightly? Or are these all doing different things?
I think Dovetail will stop at program level data from my understanding of that. And I am also working with Sky to see how C-Flight can build out, because I think that will give us a lot more robust information across. But it really only works when all the channels work together, because just seeing one slice of that, and so it is really pleasing from the agencies and from the advertiser perspective to see that the channels are kind of embracing Sky's C-Flight model, and we're really looking with interest to see that. And then in terms of Origin, we need to see some alignment across all the platforms, because at the moment that's not quite there. And I understand why, because there are differences in understanding what counts as a view, what counts as an impression, and but we absolutely wanted to be part of those conversations on behalf of our clients, to understand and to contribute and to push the agenda of measurement forward.
So measurement's obviously one part of the story, but I guess lots of the opportunities that we've spoken about involve more than just measurement. They involve allowing advertisers to onboard their first-party data if they have it, or to other data assets to carve out custom audiences. They want to attribute value to that spend, often in a data-driven way. There's all sorts of other things. Is that stuff also equally important? I mean, Dom, from your point of view, are there capabilities you want to see cultivated more widely across TV, which are nascent today, but need to be scaled up?
And I think, I guess this is why clients need agencies, right? Because everything we've just covered, it really is just the tip of the iceberg of how complex this world is. So from a client perspective, it can just be really dizzying trying to keep track of what should we be measuring? Or did you know you can also measure this, and you can measure it in 15 different ways? So there is a sort of sense of you have to stick to focusing on the core things. But then that's where I think we need to look to agencies, who in turn need to be working with sales houses to just get some level of kind of consistency across the piece. That's the thing for me, I think, John, is tempering excitement about what's possible with a bit of fear and a bit of sick in my mouth at the myriad of options that are going to make it impossible for us to know whether we're doing the right thing or not. So some level of bringing a bit of simplicity to things feels like the key.
So you heard Dom's view there, Matt. Is from a simplicity point of view, are there any other, Vicky's talked about measurement, which is clearly one big priority. Are there any other industry-wide priorities that we need to see Sky, ITV and Channel 4 working together with the agencies and the advertisers to really make this marketplace unlock its full potential?
Yeah, look, I think that is collaboration. I think all the broadcasters recognise that the collaboration with each other is vital for the industry to progress. You don't want to, as an advertiser, you don't want to be having to sign sort of 3 separate contracts for your data compliance. You want to find one route towards it. If we could fast forward 10 years and have one buy-in platform for all of TV, for all advanced opportunities, for all linear opportunities, that offered all the sort of the agility and flexibility that an advertiser would wish for, there is no doubt that the TV industry will be in a better health and providing more effective solutions and making more money. The challenge is getting there is incredibly complicated. There are lots of commercial decisions within this. There's a lot of emotion within these decisions, but I think it's the direction that we're heading in. We're seeing Channel 4 move towards is working on developing their Ad Smart solution alongside Sky. That's collaboration. We've got ITV that developed their sell-side DSP platform, Planet V, which they're offering out to other broadcasters. There's stuff happening, but we've got, I think, a little way to go to try and make it as simple as possible for advertisers to spend money with TV.
But it all sounds positive and exciting to me. I think is a good thing. It's heading in the right direction.
I think so. What do you reckon, Vicky? Are we heading in the right direction? Yeah.
We certainly are. to temper the excitement of the data-driven landscape, because we buy every campaign is thousands and thousands of spots, and I think the power of those, obviously as we move to more and more connected TV sets, that's going to be possible for more and more of those to be data-driven. There is also nothing better than the joy of a contextually placed spot in a program, in live linear event television, that excites us as media planners and our clients who write that down, put that in their trade release, and tell everybody who works with them to watch that launch spot. So I think we still need to remember that is the heart and soul of great TV is when you sit down and you can watch that sort of live event.
And I think probably one of the developments that the broadcasters have made that's actually moving us in the right area is they've all created these sort of client-focused teams, which are about getting better at working with advertisers on outcome-based solutions and trying to find that kind of answer. And it's not all rooted just in advanced opportunities. Exactly as Vicky said, it's about just finding solutions, highly contextual solutions, innovative solutions, deeper partnerships. That can do even more for brands.
Vicky, Matt, Dom, I think that's a fantastic roundup of where we are with advanced TV, and probably more than enough for people to get their teeth into at breakfast, which I believe is when this is going out. So I think we should pause there as we're out of time. A massive thank you to the three of you. I've certainly learned a lot and enjoyed talking to you. So fingers crossed, I shall look forward to reconvening in a few years to see what we got right and what we got wrong.